of Colorado, investigators say they have found the remains of a woman who went missing while out on a bike ride on Mother's Day in 2020. The discovery of Suzanne Morphew's remains was announced Wednesday, and it comes as authorities were pursuing a different case. Officials found her body about 40 miles away from where Morphew was reported missing. It's the latest twist into a story that has gained national attention. Suzanne was 49 years old at the time of her disappearance. Her husband, Barry Morphew, was accused of killing his wife and was charged in 2021 with murder and tampering with physical evidence in connection with her disappearance and, at the time, presumed death. A year later, though, prosecutors dropped those charges, saying they wanted more time to find her body. This came right before Barry was set to stand trial. His legal team has since filed a $15 million lawsuit against prosecutors and investigators, accusing them of violating his constitutional rights. We want to talk more about the discovery of Suzanne's remains, again, this coming years after she went missing. Let's bring in now forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Bodden, who is joining us here. And Dr. Bodden, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
So let's first begin with this update that so many people have been following this story. To find a body years after someone went missing, how complex does this make the investigation?
Well, there are times all medical examiners have to deal with bodies that are found years later in wooded areas, buried or not buried. The procedure will be looking at three different areas. One is the area where the body is found. I'm sure that the medical examiner and the sheriff's department are looking around the area where the body was found to see if there's any evidence left by the perpetrator. Remember, there's cigarette butts, bottle caps, beer cans have been found in such areas that have been helpful in tracking it back to a perpetrator. Even articles of clothing like belt buckles have been found. Next would be the clothing of the person on the decedent. The clothing will have, even after 3 years, will show evidence of bullet holes or stab wounds or blunt force injuries can be seen on articles of clothing that remain. The third area is the body itself, which depends largely on how decomposed, how much decomposition there's been. But normally, the skeleton remains intact, even after 3 years, except for any animal activity in the wooded area where she was found. The medical examiner, I'm sure, has been examining whatever the remains are, skeletal remains, soft tissues, taking x-rays also of the whatever the remains are to see if there's a bullet present, perhaps. The DNA can easily be gotten from bone or teeth. That's already been done. They made the identification after 5 days, which is pretty fast. If there's sufficient remains there, they'll be doing a sexual assault kit, see if there's anything that can be helpful in determining the cause of death and perhaps who the perpetrator is. But the bones, if she'd been shot or if stabbed or if hit with a baseball bat or tire iron, that causes injury to bone, the bone injuries will still persist to determine a cause of death. And that all will take time, but that's part of the process that going through. And the bones that are most carefully looked for are the small bones in the neck of the windpipe, because strangulation is a common way of assaults of a stronger being against a weaker woman, and causes fractures of the Adam's apple, the thyroid cartilage, and the hyoid bone that can determine a cause of death. If any of those bones, the big bones usually stay where they are. the smaller bones can be taken away by rodents and all is the problem, and why the scene has to be carefully looked for any remaining tissue or bones that can be useful in determining the cause of death.
Sure, and obviously there's still a lot of unknown right now, and we will continue to learn more as this investigation continues there. You've laid out several different scenarios, how what could come from this as this moves forward. So looking at that again, because Newsweek here has reported that she was found in a shallow grave. So when you look at some of these details, where she was found, how she was found, how does this play a role outside of just the timeline moving forward?
Well, the timeline, right, will probably be the time since missing, but certainly we've even found in graves, when graves are dug, we've even found medical examiners and police have found shoe prints of the perpetrator that might have been covered up by soil and are able to then be used to try and find who the perpetrator is, so that the perpetrators in digging a shallow grave may leave helpful evidence behind. But the cause of death is going to be very important if there's going to be a trial of any sort. And there, the usual causes of death can still be found by looking at the skeletal remains, certainly, and all of the skeleton. If she was shot, the decomposition may cause bullets or any kind of buckshot to still be at the scene. As the body decomposes, the bullets can drop off into the soil. And I'm sure that the police are looking very carefully at the soil to find out if there are any kind of evidence there. And I think that will help determine the cause of death, the manner of death, and whether or not the death is consistent with the 3 years. But the time she's missing is probably the best evidence of how long she's been dead.
Sure, and going off of that too, as I mentioned, her husband Barry was accused of her murder in 2021. Assuming that they still believe that he's involved now after finding her remains, does the amount of time that has passed make this harder to prove for the prosecution for one individual person that they're looking at? Or again, you know, you have so much experience with this. What would you be looking for in a situation like this?
Well, we'll be looking for any evidence that whoever is caused the death left behind, whether it's a shaded area or so. There may be still shoe prints or tire marks if a car was used. Those get to be washed away often in rain and snow. But there could still be, if she were sexually assaulted, there still could be DNA present, found after long periods of time, especially if there was snow or cold weather at some point. But the determination of who done it is really most dependent on the prosecutor and the police, and the medical examiner may or may not be able to find additional information that points to the perpetrator. But the main contribution the medical examiner makes is whether the cause of death is accident, homicide, or suicide, and together with the circumstances, certainly, but the medical examiner there may be able to determine a precise cause of death that would be helpful to the investigators, the investigation by police.
Yeah, and Dr. Bodden, thank you again for joining us here. We appreciate all of your insight and knowledge when it comes to a case and investigation like this one. Is there anything else that you would like to add here for viewers to know as we look ahead moving forward?
Well, I think that also, if she were on a bike, I understand she had a bicycle and a helmet. Those evidences certainly will be of importance also. But just a tragic, another tragic situation. Thank you.
Yeah, it certainly is. Dr. Bodden, thank you so much again for being here with us. We appreciate your. All right, Dr. Michael Bodden there, Fox contributor, joining us for more insight on the latest in this case as Morphew's remains have been found and identified. I also want to pull up this statement here from Barry Morphew's attorney, sharing a statement on his behalf. It says here, Barry is with his daughters and they are all struggling with immense shock and grief after learning today that their mother and wife, whom they deeply love, was found deceased. They had faith that their wife and mom would walk back into their lives again. The news is heartbreaking. Neither the DA nor the authorities notified Mallory and Macy Morphew about the recovery of their mom. From what we know, Barry is as innocent as he was from day one. DA Stanley and law enforcement got it wrong. We hope the authorities will quickly admit their wrongful persecution of Barry, an innocent man, to treat the Morphews like the victims they are and charge the person responsible for Suzanne's killing. The Morphews would appreciate their privacy during this deeply emotional and personal time. So we'll continue to follow the very latest, of course, into this investigation. Let's take a quick commercial break here. Much more to come. We'll be right back.